So the Bhagavad Gita, presents a profound spiritual roadmap, to liberation through three core paths. Each, are tailored to the aspirants, temperament and inclination. Let's delve deeper, into Karma Yoga, the path of action, to understand its nuances. Okay, so Karma Yoga here, and that we call the path of action. Chapter 1 to chapter 6 I have. Karma Yoga is a discipline that emphasizes action as a foundation of spiritual growth and liberation. However, its approach to action is unique because it requires detachment from the result. Right? Key teaching and philosophical insights. So here. That because selfless action, right? Central to karma, central to Karma Yoga is the idea of selfless action, which means performing your duties without any desire for personal gain or attachment to success or failure. Right? This is rooted in the understanding that attachment to the fruits of action creates bondage. Right? Okay. So leading to cycles of pain and pleasure. Right? By renouncing this attachment, the individual transcends the ego. Duty, that we call the dharma, right? The Gita emphasizes the importance of performing one's dharma, that we call the duty. Each individual has a specific role based on their innate qualities and societal responsibilities. Right? The Bhagavad Gita argues that it is better to fail in fulfilling one's own dharma than to succeed in performing someone else. Right? Okay, so here sacrificial attitude, right? So all action here, all action should be as offering to divine, akin to a sacrifice. This transforms here mundane activities, into sacred acts, right? Ensuring they are performed with purity of heart. Okay, so here sattvic action. So action that performs, without ego. The action that are performed without any ego, right? Expectation of rewards here, or selfish motives, aligned with sattva, the quality of harmony and balance. Such actions here purify the mind and elevate the door spirituality. Right? Practical application here. Role of intention. Right? The role of intentions. Okay, the focus shifts, from what we achieve to how and why we act. Pure intention matter more than the miserable success. Right? So here. Freedom through detachment, by detaching from outcomes, no one longer troubled by failures or inflated by success. Right? This equanimity, right, fosters inner peace and clarity of purpose. So integration with daily life here. Karma Yoga teaches that that routine acts, right, such as cooking or sweeping, when performed with devotion, and without selfishness, can become a mean of spiritual progress. Right? So if you are actually in the routine, right, if you are cooking or sweeping, this is also a part of spiritual progress and the process as well. Right? Okay, so philosophical, symbolism in the Gita, dialogue with Arjun, the warrior prince, Arjun represents every human soul, torn between worldly desires and spiritual aspirations, through Arjuna's dilemmas, right? Okay, so Krishna teaches us how to act decisively without being consumed by emotional turmoil or selfish desire. So here, karma and liberation, right? While karma often lead to bondage, when performed selflessly, right, it becomes a tool for liberation that we call moksha. What is the meaning of liberation? Means moksha, right? This is the paradox that Karma Yoga resolves. Okay, union with the divine. Okay, so Krishna here emphasizes that ultimate liberation, comes not just from detached action, but also from dedicating all actions to the divine. Right? Thus the ego dissolves here and the aspiration merges with the supreme. Okay. So does this resonate with the curiosity? If you had I can also explore the other path, right? The path of knowledge and the Bhakti Yoga. So let's get into it here. The workplace. If I'm talking about the workplace here, perform duties with integrity. Right? Imagine you are working on a group, right, project. On a group project you are working, instead of focusing solely on receiving praise or promotions, you devote yourself to doing the best possible job for the team success. Your focus shifts from personal gain to the contributing to the larger objective. Right? Detachment from result here. Suppose you have applied for a job or are awaiting exams results, right? Instead of stressing about the outcomes here, you are concentrating here on preparing well and trust that the results are in divine hand. Right? So helping others. So volunteering without expectation. When you engage in activities like teaching, underprivileged children, or participating in community, right, clean up, right, The act becomes selfless when you do it, without expecting recognitions or rewards. The joy lies in the act itself. Small acts of kindness, even holding the door for someone or offering a seat on public transport, right, without expecting gratitude, embodies, right, and the spirit of Karma Yoga. The third point is household chores, right? Performing tasks as offering, right? Whether it's cooking a meal, cleaning the house, or washing dishes, treating these chores as a service to your family and doing them joyfully, make them expression of devotion, right? Okay, so ego-free contribution here. Avoid keeping score, of who does more work in the household, instead contribute to family harmony selflessly, right? So here parenting, guiding children without control. Right? Parents often want their children, to succeed in specific ways, right? Practicing here Karma Yoga means providing love, guidance, and support without trying to control the outcomes of their efforts or careers. Nurturing with patience, viewing every moment spent with your children as a sacred duty, fosters toward to a deeper connection without egoistic attachments, right? So social interactions, the social interactions here. Practice active here listening, right? When listening to others here, do so genuinely without planning your responses or seeking validation. The selfless engagement deepens relationship and understanding, right? Resolving conflicts with empathy. Okay, here approach disagreements with the intention to understand rather than when let go to the attachment to being right. So here the sixth point is personal goals and hobbies, right? Dedication to improve here. Pursue your hobbies, like painting, writing, gardening, not with the aim of fame or accolades, okay, but for the sheer joy of creation and self-expression, right? Learning for the sake of growth here. Whether you are learning a new language or a musical instrument, focus on the process rather than obsessing over perfect mastery, right? Okay, so daily here meditation and reflection, detachment from the ego. If you want totally detach from the ego, then you have to in a daily basis you have to start meditation, and you will see the reflection of what it is, right? So after finishing daily work here, pause to reflect on whether your actions were driven by selflessness, right? Okay, so meditation can help to cultivate a mindset of offering everything to the dive or higher purpose, right? So consciously shifting your mindset here, every actions, however small, becomes imbued with meaning and spiritual significance. Karma Yoga reminds us that liberation does not lie lie in a renouncing action, but it is renouncing selfish motives, right? This way life itself becomes form of yoga, right? So here the point is that Karma Yoga, deeply rooted in Hindu philosophy, is one of the three classical spiritual paths here outlined in the Bhagavad Gita, alongside Jnana Yoga, that we call the path of knowledge, and Bhakti Yoga, right, path of devotion. So here are the two points, path of knowledge and path of devotion. Let's dive into it, that history and philosophy of it, right? So here, history of karma, origin of ancient text here. The concept of Karma Yoga finds its earliest mention in the Upanishad, particularly in the Bhagavad Upanishad, that, right, in 500 BCE, which discusses selfless action, as a means of spiritual growth, right? Okay, so it was later elaborated in the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna explained Karma Yoga to Arjun, as a path of liberation through selfless action, right? Okay, so interaction with dharma. The Gita ties Karma Yoga, to concept of dharma, difficult duty, emphasizing that fulfilling one's responsibilities with detachment from results aligned with cosmic order and spiritual evolution. Okay, so influence of philosophers like Swami Vivekananda popularized Karma Yoga in modern times, presenting it a practical approach to spirituality that interacts seamlessly with daily life, right? So philosophy of Karma Yoga, the philosophy of Karma Yoga here, core principle, so here Nishkama Karma, right? Action should be performed without attachment to their outcomes. This detachment purifies the mind and reduces ego, right? So here selfless service here. Actions are seen as offering to the divine, as the contribution to the welfare of others, fostering humility and compassion, right? So alignment with drama, performing one's duty with sincerity and righteousness, right, is central to Karma Yoga, right? Spiritual liberation here, if I'm talking about that, Karma Yoga teaches that self selfless action teach moksha, that we call the liberation. What is the meaning of liberation here? The meaning of liberation is moksha, by breaking the cycle of karma, that we call the cause and effect, right? It transforms ordinary actions into spiritual practices, right? So here practical philosophy, if I'm talking about that here, unlike other paths that may require renunciation, right? Renunciation is what? It's like a devotion, it's like a penance, right? It's like a penance. Renunciation is like a meditation, right? It's a penance or intense meditation. That this is what I'm trying to say. Karma yoga here, integrates spirituality into everyday life, making it accessible to all. Okay, so union with divine. The ultimate goal of karma yoga is to dissolve the ego and merge with the divine by dedicating all actions to the higher purpose. Okay, so here karma yoga is a timeless philosophy that bridges the gap between spiritual ideas and practical living. It teaches us that every action when performed selflessly with devotion becomes a step towards liberation. So if you had I can also explore how karma yoga compared. So here the point is that if I'm talking about here karma yoga with its focus or selfless action and detachment from results, that hold immense relevance in modern life. Here is how the principle of karma yoga can be applied practically today, right? So if I'm talking about here the workplace step by step, right? So accordingly we have to go through with it, right? So workplace and professional growth here. So firstly the point is that collaborating efforts, right? In teams environment here, focus on collecting goals rather than individual recognition mirrors or the selflessness of karma yoga. For example, you're contributing to a project for its success instead of weighing for personal accolades, right? Okay, so detachment from the outcomes here. Professionals often face uncertainty, okay, be it promotions, appraisals or business results. Karma yoga teaches us to focus on putting in sincere effort while accepting the outcomes without anxiety, right? Okay, so education and learning here, pursuing knowledge for growth here. Students can adopt a karma yoga mindset by studying not just for grades or rewards, but for the joy or learning and self improvement, right? Okay, so coping with results, right? Exams often induce stress. Karma yoga helps students accept results here, whether success or failure, as a step on the path growth. So here parenting and relationships here, raising children with unconditional love, right? Raising children with unconditional love, right? So parents can practice karma yoga by nurturing children without imposing expectation of how they should turn out, focusing instead of providing love and guidance selflessly, right? So relationship here maintenance, in relationships practicing selfless and reducing ego based conflicts aligned with the principle of karma yoga. So here next point is leadership and community services. So here empowering others here, leaders who inspires and support their teams focus on the growth of individuals rather than personal growth and gains, right? Okay, embody karma yoga principles here, volunteering and activism, right? Participating in community service or environmental activism without seeking recognition here, bring karma yoga into action. The fifth point is stress management and mental wellness, right? Cultivating here equanimity, in a world of constant pressure, detachment from outcomes, they reduce stress, helping individuals navigate life with calmness and resilience, right? So mindful living here, approaching daily tasks with mindfulness and sincerity, treating them as sacred duties, helps shift focus from external validations to internal contentment. Sixth point is pursuit of hobbies and passion, focus on process over results here. Artists, writers and athletes can approach their crafts as a form of devotion here, valuing the process of creation rather than focusing solely on success or fame here. Global perspectives here, selfless contribution to society here. In a modern organization here, promoting social entrepreneurship or humanitarian efforts reflect karma yoga by prioritizing societal welfare over profit making, right? So here global citizenship action like supporting sustainable practicing or raising here awareness for global challenges, embody karma yoga in those of contributing selflessly to control well-being, right? So here if I'm talking about here Bhakti Yoga, that we call the path of devotion, right? So Bhakti Yoga focuses on cultivating a loving personal relationship with a divine through unwavering devotion, surrender and faith here. It is considered the most accessible spiritual path here, transcending intellectual and ritualist barriers, right? So here core teaching of Bhakti Yoga, right, and devotion as the ultimate means here. Bhakti Yoga emphasizes the pure love and complete surrender to God. I mean to say God is the highest from the spiritual practice here. Krishna here explains that all the all beings, can attain liberation, that we call moksha here, through sincere devotion, right, regardless to their social and material status. Single mindset here, single-minded focus, right, is what here a true devotee concentrates, executively on the divine here, avoiding distractions and duality. So here, like pleasure and pain, success and failure, right, selfless surrender here. Surrender involves accepting the divine's will entirely, letting go of ego and trusting the God is the ultimate protector and refuge, right. So equality among devotee here, teachers teach Krishna teaches that he is equally accessible to all being here, irrespective of caste, creed, gender or past action. The universality, makes Bhakti Yoga deeply, inclusive. So keywords here, philosophical insight here. Krishna as a supreme being, Krishna reveals his universal form, in chapter 11 here, showcasing that he is both immanent and transcendent. The creators here, preserver and destroyer of all existence, right. This established Krishna not merely as the deity but as the Param Brahma, that we call the ultimate reality. So the path converges in devotion here. Krishna explains that even those on other path here, ultimately reach him when they act selflessly with love, right. So forms of devotion here, bhakti is expressed through various forms, including chanting here God's name, meditating on his form and performing selfless services, seva, that we call, right. The relationship between here devotee and divine. So Bhakti Yoga fosters, personal and intimate bonds with God, right. Often, likened to various human relationships, parents, children, parent, child, friend, lover, servant, right. Devotion is not rooted in fear of obligation, but unconditional love here, trust and longing for union with the divine. So practical application, Bhakti Yoga today, faith beyond reason here, trust in the divine during the challenging time here, fostering resilient and inner peace. Daily devotion here, simple acts like prayer, meditations or offering gratitude turn ordinary moments into spiritual practice. Like inclusive spirituality, for Bhakti Yoga emphasizes love and acceptance, transcending religious boundaries and emphasizes unity. So Bhakti Yoga beautifully, illustrates that liberations is not the reserved for the intellectual or aesthetic. It's available to anyone who opens their heart in love and faith towards the divine. So if you had I can explore its relevance in a specific scenarios, with compare it with other spiritual paths. So here the next point is path of knowledge. So path of knowledge, if we're talking about here, the path of knowledge emphasizes windows, self-inquiry, and understanding the eternal trust here, right, truth. Fine, that's the same thing. It teaches the seeker to discern between the physical body, and eternal soul, fostering realizations of one's divine nature. Core concept here, self-realization, like recognizing that the true self, at eternal beyond the physical body and mind. So discernment here, learning to separate material illusions here from the spiritual truth through self-inquiry. Knowledge of oneness. So knowledge of oneness. Realizing that the soul is one with the ultimate reality, right. So life lesson from here, Jnana Yoga, detachment from the materialisms. You understand the positions, titles, and worldly achievements are temporary focus or inner growth and eternal truth here. Pursue inner wisdom. You reflect on life's deeper questions to achieve clarity and purpose, right. So here embrace here equanimity by recognizing the impermanence of emotion and situation. Cultivate peace and acceptance, right. See unity in diversity. Recognitions the divine essence in all beings, fostering companion and harmony here. So that Jnana Yoga inspires us, move beyond superficiality and discover the profound truth within ourselves. So here Jnana Yoga, that we got the path of knowledge, philosophy. So here philosophy and core teaching here. So Jnana Yoga emphasizes that the Atman is what? The soul is eternal and distinct from the Prakriti, material body and mind, right. The realizations free one from the illusions of identifying solely with the body and the ego, right. Maya, that because the illusion, right. The world as we perceive it, is totally influenced by Maya, by illusions, right. Understanding this helps to detach from the superficial attachments and see things as they are, right. Union with Brahman, that we call the soul, right. So here Jnana Yoga leads to the awareness that the Atman, that we call the soul, and Brahma, so that we call the supreme reality, are one and the same here. This is the essence of Advaita, right? So 4 stages of Jnana Yoga, right? Because the Vedantic philosophy, right? Here Viveka, discrimination here, discern between the transient and the eternal, recognizing the soul as the ultimate reality. Vairagya means what? Dispassion means what here? If I'm talking about this point, develop detachment from worldly pleasures and desires, understanding their impermanence. Okay. Shat Sampat means what? 6 virtues here. Cultivate, tranquility, self-control, withdrawal, endurance, faith and focus to purity the mind, right? Muku Shutva. Okay, so yearning for liberation, an intense desire for freedom from the cycle of birth and death, drives the seeker towards self-realization, right? So your life lesson, from the Jnana Yoga here, detachment brings peace, right? In daily life, practice detachment by recognizing that the external, situation don't define your inner peace, right? Seek truth, seek truth beyond appearance, right? Cultivate curiosity to, question assumptions and search for deeper truth. For instance, focus on understanding relationships rather than the judging appearance, right? Okay, so transform challenges into growth. So view struggles as opportunity to reflect on life's right purpose and align with your higher self, right? So value unity in diversity, right? So acknowledge that all beings share the same divine essence, fostering greater companion and harmony, right? So here, if I'm talking about the Karma Yoga, that's the path of action, right? So here, chapter 1 to chapter 6, if I'm talking about again here, the first section of the Bhagavad Gita says here, the stage for one of the most profound, philosophical discourses in humanity history, It introduces the dilemma of human existence at the guiding principles for leading a balanced and righteous life. It focusing on action here, karma, as means of spiritual growth and liberation, right? So the chapter first is what here? Arjuna dilemmas, the Arjuna Vishad Yoga, right? The first chapter here titled Arjuna, Vishad Yoga. Open on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Arjuna, mighty warriors of the Pandav, right, is preparing for war against his own relatives, teachers and friends, right? Okay, however, as a reality of impending violence, okay, since Arjuna is overwhelmed by grief, moral confusion and emotional distress, okay, he faces an ethical dilemma, right? So here solo and moral conflict. Arjuna questions whether it's righteous to find and kill his own kin, even if the cause here seems just the thought of destructions of families, and the ensuring social chores leads him to recognize that the morality of war, his mind is totally clouded, with attachments and doubts here, causing him to cast aside his bow and refuse to fight here. Significance of chapters, I'm talking about the Arjuna inner turmoil here, symbolizes the universal human experience of facing moral conflicts and existential crisis here. Okay. This chapter sets the stage for Lord Krishna, teaching, highlighting a necessity of spiritual guidance in overcoming doubt and confusion. So if I'm talking about the chapter 2 in the path of knowledge, right? In the second chapter here, Lord Krishna, begins his discourse, right, offering profound wisdom to address Arjuna's doubt here, right? The Sankhya Yoga introduces the philosophy of detachment, the eternal nature of the soul and the principles of Karma Yoga, right? Key teaching here, eternal nature of the soul that we call the Atman, right? Atman. Krishna explained the soul is eternal and indestructible, okay, so unaffected by the birth or death here. Only the physical body here perishes, while the soul transcends cycle of life and death here. Okay, performing duty without attachment here. Krishna introduces the concept of Karma Yoga, emphasizing that one must perform their duty selflessly without being attached to the outcomes here. Significance of the chapter here, it serves as the foundation of the Gita's here teachings, urging individuals to evolve emotional attachments and focus on their responsibilities with clarity and purposes, right? Krishna lays the groundwork and understanding the true nature of existence here, inspiring here Arjuna to look beyond the temporary and align with external truth. So chapter 3 is what? Selfless action, that because the Karma Yoga. In Karma Yoga here, Krishna elaborates on the philosophy of selfless action, emphasizing the necessity of remain alive, remain active to the world here while avoiding attachment to the result. So here the key point and the key teaching here, selfless action, which I have already cleared, I think. Yeah, I have already cleared. So the next point, if I'm talking about, this is totally continuous, right? There's no doubt in it. So if I'm talking about the key takeaways from the Bhagavad Gita here, integral approach, right, to spirituality, the Gita emphasizes the compatibility of three three yogas. While some may lean towards action here, karma yoga, other towards here devotion, that we call the Bhakti Yoga, wisdom here, Jnana Yoga. Okay, Krishna shows that spiritual growth often requires a blend of all three, right? The goal of liberation first. Okay, second is moksha, right? The god of liberation. Liberation is what? Liberation is mokshana. Okay, the ultimate aim of the Gita is to guide individuals towards moksha, which is freedom from the cycle of the birth and death, right? The liberation is achieved by transcending ego, detachment from material desires, and union with the divine, right? Practical spirituality, if I'm talking about here, the Gita breaks the notion that spirituality is confirmed here, okay, to renunciate and monks, right? It teaches that one can be spirituality fulfilled while actively participating in worldly life by aligning one's action and intentions with higher principles. Universal here appeal. Universal appeal is what here? It teaching rooted in Hindu philosophy, transcend religious boundaries, the addressing universal human challenge, like doubt here, grief, attachments, and the search for purpose, offering guidance to anyone seeking the clarity and peace, right? So if I'm talking about the relevance in modern life, the Bhagavad Gita continues to inspire individuals worldwide, by offering timeless wisdoms applicable to contemporary challenges, right? So in personal life, it encourages, right, a balanced life here, performing, one's duty, maintaining inner peace, and cultivating self-awareness. In professional life here, the principle of karma yoga, right, emphasizes integrity, teamwork, and detachment from the results, fostering resilience and ethical leadership, right? In times of critical here, Krishna's counsel to Arjuna serves as a metaphor for overcoming doubts and fear, motivating individuals to act decisively and wisely. So the conclusion of the point is what? So here the conclusion is the Bhagavad Gita stands as a profound guide, right, to live purposeful, balanced, and spiritually enriched life. Its teaching, while rooted in ancient wisdom, remain timeless and universal here, addressing fundamental questions about duty, purpose, and nature of existence. So if there anything else you had like to explore or reflect upon, deeper insights into a specific yoga, like philosophical debates, or connecting these teachings to your personal interest like storytelling or self-improvement, let me know. So this is all about the Bhagavad Gita. So yeah, Jai Shri Ram.